This is a Cyrus Alger ship's cannon. Was probably rifled at one time. The rifling is pretty much gone now. It's a sort of a Dahlgren shaped gun. If you notice the soda bottle look, and the carriage is pretty well done in, but it serves to hold it for display anyway. This is the most historic gun in the collection, I think. El Havilland was cast in Barcelona in 1750, and we've done a separate video on El Havilland that you can view on YouTube. And rather than repeat a lot of information, please go there and take a look. Very historic piece. This is a Dutch East India Company gun made by Peter Seest in 1769. It was made at the Amsterdam Admiralty, which was run by Seest, the Seest family. And you can see the Amsterdam town proof mark up here, a little bitty windmill. And there's the Amsterdam Admiralty mark. And Peter Seest marks and the date are shown up here. Came from a shipwreck. I don't know any details of that because it was long ago. This is a French mountain howitzer model 1828, the original of this type. The only difference in this and the design that the U.S. licensed and that Spain licensed was that those countries both moved the trunnions from the low line to the center line of the barrel. The name of this is La Rappe. It was made in the 1840s. It's named after a famous French general from the War of 1812. Very young general who fought alongside Napoleon. Here's a Spanish version of the same type weapon, basically a 12-pounder mountain howitzer. This one is named Albuera because that's a famous War of 1812 battle that the Spanish won. This one has the coat of arms of Queen Isabella II, not one of Spain's greatest queens. Didn't have a very good reputation, but anyway, that's her. This French gun back here has the coat of arms of King Louis Philippe, who was in power for about 15 years, and it's also dated in the 1840s. This is a French 15 centimeter trench mortar called a Gomer mortar. It also has Louis Philippe's coat of arms on it, and it was made in the 1840s. The only thing this fired was explosive shells. Been fired so much the bore is slightly oval. I don't know whether you can tell that or not, but if you measure it, it is. One dimension exceeds the other by about 1/2 inch. This is a Chinese 95 millimeter rifled mountain howitzer, made about 1869. Chinese writing on it has been translated. I don't have the translation here right now. This is a breech loading swivel gun captured in Korea by the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps in 1871. And here's a swivel gun, typical English swivel gun, probably for a merchant ship because it doesn't have military markings. It has a little crown and a 1, showing it as a 1-pounder, and the crown may be mean it's a Bailey and Pegg product or may not. Bailey and Pegg often use such a crown to indicate their products. As with this piece, which is a small, a 2-pounder gun aid, we call it, made by Bailey and Pegg with the crown and the BP mark for Bailey and Pegg Foundry. This is an interesting gun found on Hutchinson's Island, South Carolina, which is in the Savannah River between Georgia and South Carolina. And it was made at Falkirk Foundry in England. And it's well marked to that effect. Probably could use another coat of paint, but the markings on it are pretty good if you look. It's a 2-pounder. This is a U.S. Bronze Gun C line throwing gun. This is a 3.5-inch Hunt life-saving cannon, used only by the Massachusetts Life-Saving Society, my understanding, not by the U.S. This is a Naval Company 2.5-inch bore model FB line throwing cannon dated in the 1940s. This is a Costin 2.5-inch bore line throwing cannon made in the early 20th century, and Costin Signal Company produced anything you needed on your ship as far as life-saving, signaling, whatever. This is a very nice unknown maker, but a very well made salute cannon, 3-gauge with a 10-gauge adapter. And as you can see, it's a breech loader. There's a couple of cartridge cases on the cheek pieces there, and here's the breech mechanism. It looks complicated, but it's not. The 10-gauge adapter is already installed, but you can fire the 3-gauge shell simply by removing it. And last but not least is the Filipino gas pipe cannon, used as a stopgap measure, light artillery by the Filipino rebels against the Spanish, and later against the Americans. And you see there's a gas pipe in there, then there's some hardwood, either probably gnarl wood or teak wood, and then iron rings shrunk onto it for extra strength. And I think the wood wasn't so much for strength, but just when it blew up, it wouldn't hurt people so badly. Personal opinion. So let's take a quick tour in the reverse order of what we did, and just not talk, but let you see the cannons a little more quickly than the first time around. These are all going up for auction today, so you know, unless there's something left over, you won't be able to buy these, but we're making this for educational purposes. And then there are a couple other guns and outlying locations around the auction house that we're going to try and pick up as we go through the day here. And this is the largest collection of cannons that's ever been sold at one time, my understanding. That's what the auctioneer told me anyway, his understanding. Here are two more pieces from the Julia auction. Today's auction day, the 7th of October, 2014. And these pieces they put out front as kind of a welcome sign. This is a U.S. heavy 12-pounder rifled field gun, dated 1850, made by the Ames Company in Chicopee, Massachusetts. Well marked. This is gun number 17, inspected by James Wolfe Ripley. I think later became a general. Nice date, 1850. See the characteristic rectangular dolphins on top. They call them dolphins because in the old days those pieces some people call lifting handles were shaped like dolphins from the sea. You see the nice rifling and the Ames Company markings. It's on a wonderful older reproduction carriage made out of white oak and ash and all the appropriate materials, and I think that's called a number 3 carriage. 1 being the smallest, 3 being the largest of the field carriages the U.S. used. Now here's one of the hopefully stars in the auction is a Dahlgren heavy boat howitzer dated 1858. This particular boat howitzer was carried aboard the USS Water Witch and USS E.B. Hale during the Civil War, and perhaps other ships we haven't found through our research yet. But it's a wonderful piece. It was in the Brown collection, famous collection that was sold back in the 1960s. There's the Navy Foundry mark. It's on the original carriage. Wrought iron carriage, if I'm not mistaken. Since it was Dahlgren's design, he had his name put on all the boat howitzers he designed. So there's the name Dahlgren. John A. Dahlgren. 12-pounder boat howitzer, 1858, inspected by John A. Dahlgren. And then the hammer, firing hammer, and other marks. This is registry number 52, made at the U.S. Navy Yard, Washington. Weighs 760 pounds as far as the tube. Elevating screw, characteristic trail wheel that can be raised when you're not moving the gun. Howitzer and the trail handspike over here. Anyway, really a beautiful piece. Hope it finds a good home.
Have you ever shot that one? Does it need anything?
No, I've shot it with primers just to make sure everything works.
Does it need anything?
Money.
No, but is there anything it needs as far as missing?
Many of them are missing the rear sight, and this has the original rear sight.
And why is it cockeyed? See how it's crooked like that?
Yeah, it's designed that way.
Why would it be bent? See how it's not perpendicular?
Yeah. You can adjust it so it's any angle you want. It's so if you're not leaving green, you can adjust the sight until it's level. See,
But I
see
mean,
the level?
yeah, but the sight, see how it's not straight up, it's not level.
You can adjust it so it's level. I'll show you.
And what's missing right here?
Nothing.
There's supposed to be a square that lines up something here, goes there on
That's
that.
where you put your quadrant that you take off before you fire it.
Okay, because I figured that's the line.